Hey guys, it's Alex, and I wanted to talk one final time about this whole Jeff Nippard, Mike Van Wyck situation. So I don't plan on milking this any further, but there were a few developments that have come out since my original video that I wanted to discuss today. On my last video about this whole situation too, I got some comments talking about the CCTV footage and other things that have developed since I last spoke about this. So when I made that original video, obviously that CCTV security footage was not publicly available yet, so I wasn't really able to include that in my video. It's less about me being misinformed and more just about stuff that really just hadn't come to light yet. But I wanted to do one final video kind of explaining everything from beginning to end with all the evidence that we have and what I kind of think about this whole situation. And like I said in the previous video, I don't know either of these people. I don't even really watch their stuff all that often. Jeff's obviously extremely popular, and being a fitness influencer, I've seen his stuff a lot. I think a lot of his stuff is really high quality content. I think he makes a lot of great content. Doesn't mean I agree with him on everything, but I think overall he seems like a really solid guy. Don't know him, like I said, so I can't speak on like a personal level, but just kind of taking a step back, looking outside in, seems like a decent human being. Mike Van Wyck, on the other hand, I'll admit, I know much less about him. I'm not as informed about his content, about his bodybuilding experience, his IFBB pro career. You know, I'm not that well informed, and I'm not gonna front like I am or do a quick little bit of research and then act like I've known this all along. Now, if you're watching this video, I have a feeling that most of you have probably already seen what's come out so far regarding him getting throat punched, some of the back and forth, the updates from the hospital, but I'll kind of take you through the situation one last time and now include it with the security footage so you kind of get the full picture of this situation. So this all obviously starts when Mike Van Wyck makes a video talking about science-based creators, and he essentially asserts that if science-based creators are so smart and so knowledgeable, why are their physiques so mediocre?
We all know the science-based guys. Tell me if you would describe their physique as excellent, average, or mediocre. Guarantee it's not an excellent. Science guys really need to answer this question before anything. Why is it that you remain so mediocre, yet you know so much? Bodybuilding, you can be like this big or this short in some cases. It's always short though. Somehow you're an expert on muscle, but you don't have any.
Now, obviously, as I pointed out in the previous video, I have a lot of problems with this because it disses science-based creators and basically gives a middle finger to those that want to work their hardest and look their best without taking performance-enhancing drugs. I think that's a huge problem because too many people already take steroids, and taking steroids is a cheat code. Doesn't mean I hate these people, doesn't mean these people don't provide value, but if you take steroids, you will look way more insane than you would without taking them. And that's regardless of your training regimen. Yes, these IFBB pros, they do still work hard. I'm not denying that. But if you take steroids, it is not that hard to build muscle, and you can build it at an extremely fast rate. As I noted in my previous video, following the same training regimen I was doing when I was natural, I gained 30 pounds in just a few months, taking the absolute weakest steroids you could possibly take on the market. I took a low dose of Test and a medium dose of Anavar, which are already two of the mildest steroids there are, and had insane gains while I took them. Yet in today's world, bodybuilders, probably Mike Van Wyck, are taking a long list of drugs that include testosterone, primobolan, DECA, HGH, insulin, Anadrol, Dianabol, Tren, the list goes on and on. There are so many steroids, and they're not only stacking a much higher dose of testosterone, usually between 500 to 1,000 milligrams, with some of the most potent steroids on the market, bulking steroids such as Anadrol, Dianabol, and Tren. So when I broke it down in the last video, I showed you the original video of Mike Van Wyck. I showed Jeff's response to the video, basically saying what separates him from a bodybuilder like Mike Van Wyck or another IFBB pro is the use of steroids. He didn't attack him, he didn't say he didn't provide value. In fact, he even admits that he listens to what a lot of these bigger guys have to say often.
Because facts are facts. Information is either right or wrong. It doesn't matter who that information is coming from. If the people with the best physiques had the most knowledge, why would C-Bum need a coach? He has the best physique on the planet. Who could possibly know more than him? Well, it's pretty obvious that bodybuilding success comes from great genetics and really hard training, and if you want to make it in the IFBB, steroid use. I like science because it gives me more confidence in what actually works and what doesn't, because it isolates variables. If you trust a big guy's advice over scientific studies, that doesn't bother me. I listen to what big guys have to say too.
So I think Jeff gave credit where it was due, but also politely responded and correctly responded as to what separates him from your traditional IFBB pro. Now, after I made that video, and honestly, most people in the comments were really respectful. I gained a few new subscribers, a lot of people voiced their input, and obviously this is an open platform, so I encourage anybody and everybody to voice your opinion and let people know what you think. That's the beauty of the world. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you, but I think that my comment section was pretty respectful. There was lots of insight from other people, lots of different takes, and I am happy you guys voice your input genuinely. I think it's awesome. Now, one common theme I noticed in the comments of my last video is a lot of people were saying that this CCTV footage changes everything. The security footage from the gym changes everything. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't disagree more, and I'll share my opinion why, and you're totally entitled to your own thoughts, your own opinions, but this is kind of my take on the security footage and what it brings to light. Now, the security footage starts out with Jeff Nippard being filmed by his videographer doing some exercise on the cable machine. And while Jeff is filming for his social media, Mike comes up and says "sup" right in front of his face. Now, this is already pretty weird because obviously Jeff is doing his own thing. He's not talking to Mike, he wasn't interacting with Mike, he was just doing his own thing in the gym, and Mike clearly interrupts him, and so he knows he's gonna have to film another take. Now, it's not that big of a deal. If I was Jeff and I was filming, because I do often film in the gym, I would be annoyed. I wouldn't make a huge deal about it. He's gotta do another take. Really not a big deal, but like you can tell Mike is obviously trying to be a nuisance from the beginning. I don't think that's a stretch to say. I don't think it's hyperbolic to assume that. So after Mike says "sup" to Jeff in his video, you can see from the security footage that Jeff kind of laughs it off. Now, I've heard some people have some kind of wild takes about Jeff's response by laughing, and I don't want to nitpick things too much, but we don't have a lot to pull from in the security footage, so we kind of have to pull from what we have. And I think Jeff's response is pretty natural because obviously he's being interrupted. Mike's trying to be a nuisance, Jeff's minding his own business, and he says "sup" and kind of gets in his face while he's filming. So I think Jeff did what probably most people would do and just kind of laughs it off uncomfortably because it's kind of uncalled for, it's kind of out of the blue. It's like, dude, why are you doing this? So Jeff just laughs it off. Then as Mike is walking back to his own cable machine where I think he was doing lat pull downs, he turns back to Jeff and he says, "Things are gonna get real funny real quick." Now, to me, that definitely sounds like some form of a threat or foreshadowing as to what is to come. Is that violence? No. Is that assault? No. But obviously you wouldn't say that to somebody that you're cordial with, so clearly he had some sort of problem with Jeff being there. Now, while Mike goes back to his lat pull down and Jeff continues with his workout, towards the end of one of his sets, you can see Jeff in the video saying, "Hey, Mike." And I've had a lot of comments and a lot of input and a lot of people say that that's the threat. Jeff was egging it on right there. He wanted to fight. He wanted to brawl. That was Jeff threatening Mike and it gave him the right to punch him. That's the wildest shit I've ever heard in my life. I think that is a crazy take personally. Now, if you believe this, I don't have a problem with you. I'm not attacking you. I just think that is very much of a stretch. So after Jeff says, "Hey, Mike," he takes a couple steps forward to Mike like he wants to have some sort of conversation. After he takes a few steps, Mike then walks towards him and just kind of throat punches him out of the blue. Now, in this point specifically, this is where I heard what I thought were some wild takes. I've heard people say that the combination of Jeff saying, "Hey, Mike," and then walking towards him was total justification and rationalization to get punched. And that Jeff was looking for a fight, and by going over to him, he was gonna fight him, he was standing his ground, and I just really don't think that's the case. Obviously, people watching this and myself, we weren't there, so it can only be left up to our own speculation. But in my eyes, this is how I perceive things. If I was Jeff and I'm working out at this gym, they've made content about each other, they don't regularly talk or hang out in the gym, they didn't have a civil conversation like they probably should have, the way I see things is after Jeff can obviously sense this like super awkward tension between the interrupting him in his set to saying things are gonna get real funny real quick, I personally think Jeff called over to Mike because he probably thought in his head, this is so unnecessary. Why is there all this awkward tension? We work out at the exact same gym, we film content at the exact same gym. It just doesn't make sense for this awkward tension to continue. So I'm gonna go over and have a conversation with him and end this beef and just chat. Just have a nice conversation, see where he's at, ask him what his problem is, and just see if we can work this out. Obviously, I'm just speculating. I don't know this for sure, but I think it's way less of a stretch to assume that that's the truth than to think Jeff was picking some fight or trying to throw hands. Jeff is way smaller than Mike. And once again, this isn't dissing his physique, it's just calling it as it is. Jeff doesn't strike me as an extremely aggressive person or a confrontational person, so I really truly believe his only intention for calling Mike over was to have some sort of conversation, but that didn't even get to that point because Mike was so quick to assault him and pull the trigger. So I don't really see how this security footage is changing any sort of narrative or changes the story completely. I really think it just reaffirms what we kind of initially all thought, that Mike was overly aggressive, totally out of place, totally out of line, and I really don't think Jeff did anything wrong, and I don't think the security footage proved any of that. I think Jeff was very understanding. I think his awkward, uncomfortable laugh is justified, and I think him calling him over was just an attempt to have a conversation and end this like unnecessary awkward tension. I mean, think about it in your perspective. If you're an influencer and you worked out at the exact same gym as somebody and they're talking shit about you online and you guys are talking about each other online, why have this awkward tension? You guys are gonna have to see each other every day. Like, wouldn't you rather just settle it and not have it be awkward every time you wanna work out or every time you wanna film? That's just what makes the most sense to me. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm the one with the wild take, but to me it seems pretty obvious, and I don't think it's far-fetched to think that. If you dive deeper into the security footage too, it does show what Jeff said to be true. Mike punches him twice in the neck. As well, he also assaults his cameraman that didn't do anything in this situation. It is said that in the footage, Mike asked the camera guy to stop recording, which he did, and he gets assaulted after he stopped recording. You can clearly see the cameraman has his camera at the side, not recording, and that's when he gets assaulted by Mike after Jeff gets throat punched twice. And I think some people have just become like too accustomed to violence and thinking that even because he didn't get knocked out or just because he didn't get seriously injured that this is okay. No, it's absolutely not okay. Yes, I agree that things could have been worse. I agree that Jeff could have been injured more. And I certainly believe that Mike Van Wyck has that capability. He's a very large human being. But I think we should be thankful that we can take away from the situation and learn from the situation without somebody having to be seriously injured. But that doesn't defend Mike's actions whatsoever. What he did is clearly wrong. Somebody on my video said, Mike is way stronger of a person, but Jeff is way bigger of a man. And I think that's a really level-headed, accurate way of putting this whole situation. Jeff is clearly smaller than Mike, but his actions, I think, make him a way bigger person. What Mike did is really cheap. Taking a whole bunch of drugs to be jacked up and big and treat people like shit that don't agree with you or that you don't get along with or you have a difference of opinion, assaulting them and causing violence is fucking pathetic. It's really just pathetic. And like I said, I don't really have sides in this situation. I don't know either of these people. I have no right to defend them. I know nothing about them other than the bare minimum. But this is obviously huge news in the fitness industry. These are two very big figures. And I don't think this is a healthy path to defend somebody like Mike. And if you look at Mike's response to this, he's released merch about the situation, he has given absolutely zero apologies, and he doesn't seem to care whatsoever. In fact, he's capitalizing and monetizing off this situation. If that doesn't tell you what kind of person he is, I don't know what to tell you. If after this situation, he made a response and he was like, yo, I seriously messed up, I know I was out of line, I shouldn't have done that, I would, I'd grant him some slack. And I'd be willing to listen, and I think people will be willing to understand. We all make mistakes. We all get riled up. We all do things we shouldn't. But to double down on his perspective and to repost all these stories, people defending him, and to release merch and monetize on this situation, I think is just really shitty. And I think it's an unfortunate reflection of who he is as a person, and I don't like it, and I absolutely do not stand for it. And regardless of what side you feel on this, if you are dead set on defending Mike and he's your hero and you believe in violence, I don't know what to tell you. I guess we're just gonna agree to disagree. I don't think you're a bad person for feeling the way you do, but if you are siding with Mike, I would just really encourage you to take a step back and really think about the situation. really think about the facts involved, really think about the people involved, really think about the things that were said. I just don't think there's any real way morally that you can defend Mike's actions. I just really don't. I think it's weak. I think it's pathetic. It's just so shitty to me. Just because you work out is not an excuse to be a shitty person or a violent person. I love to work out, but I am not violent at all. I've never picked a fight with anybody in my life, and I probably never will. Now, if somebody threw hands with me or was clearly aggressive, yeah, I'd probably stand my ground. But I'm not gonna go out of my way to hurt somebody because I disagree with them or because I don't like them. We live in a society where we can voice our disagreements. It doesn't matter what race you are, what gender you are, your sexual orientation, your political party. I don't care. I don't care about that at all. You are 100% entitled to what you believe. You don't have to like me. I don't care if you like me. I'm not gonna throw hands because you disagree with me or because I don't like you. And I think the world will be a much better place if we can all abide by that. Anyway, those are my thoughts about the situation. Seeing the footage we saw initially, now seeing the security footage, I don't think it changes anything. I think it only helps defend Jeff, if I'm being honest. And I appreciate you guys watching. That's gonna be the last video I do on this. I'm not trying to milk this anymore. I just wanted to provide more context since we have it now so everybody can understand. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.